into how we can apply CSS. And I've already deployed the application for this particular this demonstration, so that we don't have to sit and wait for G-Cloud to deploy. So let's go into our App Engine files, and we're going to go to step 9 this time, or step 8 this time, and we're going to take a look at that README. So you can see we've got a couple of things happening already. We're changing some of the URL parameterization. So in our app route, we're going to see how we can use that to kind of pull specific pages in our templates. So we'll take a look at that in our main pie. Our base HTML is going to include this style sheet. So you can see here we're referencing a static file sheet so that we can see our CSS. We're going to have several different selectors for our CSS so we can show how that's applied. And we created a new absolutes HTML file to see how absolute positioning can work. So now we'll see a lot of visual differences, even though none of the HTML is really, it hasn't really changed much. We've just applied all of this CSS. So let's go into the project, and we will open main.py just before we take a look here. And you can see we've got our routes, and then we're going to render all the templates the same way. And if we take a look here, we've got a couple of different templates, and here's our new absolutes. This is just a couple of IDs that will allow us, or divs with IDs that will allow us to set absolute positioning for those elements. And in our base, you can see we have a style sheet now, and if we want to take a look at that very quickly, we can look in our static files. We're going to see a style sheet. It's got a bunch of different selectors, and it's got a bunch of different CSS properties, and we're setting a lot of different things. So let's go ahead and open up a window so we can explore this. So you can see already this is pretty different. HTML samples with CSS. That's not just plain white background, plain black text. So if we go back and we see what we're doing with H1, you can see we've set the color, we've set the background color, we've set the border, and you can see here border width. We're saying I think this is top right, bottom left, yes. So this kind of goes clockwise from the top. So 0 pixels, a thin border, and then 0 pixels. And you can see what we end up with is nothing, no border on the top, no border on the right. We have a thin border on the bottom, and then a border on the left. So this kind of gives it sort of like a heading, more of a heading type of feel. And then our border style is solid, so you can kind of just see that that's the border at the bottom. Note we didn't set the border color. I think it just defaults to black in this case. So you can you can see, if you were to zoom in on that and expand, I think you'd see that that's black. The next thing you'll see is all of these different links, and we've actually set those as well. So if we have, let me see, where's our anchor element? Oh, that's actually not set. Sorry, it's been a while since I created this example. But it looks like we've changed the body font, so everything in the body is now going to be Arial. And for some reason, Arial is a pretty common font, but if there is some reason that that's not loaded, we're just going to use whatever default sans serif font that is loaded for that browser. So you can see now, and then we have a basic HTML file, and that's going to be Arial font as well, just like it's specified in the body element. So let's go ahead and take a look at our link samples. Here we have different links, and nothing too obviously changed here. We've got different links, and these are not terribly exciting. So you can see, we click on these, and they don't really do much that's that interesting. And images is also going to be a pretty straightforward, page. But when we get into lists, now we can actually do a couple of things within our list. So if we take a look at our ordered list, we can see we're using lower alpha, so that's going to set these, instead of numbers, we're going to see A, B, C, D, E, F. And for our unordered list, or for our unordered list, we're going to have the style type is going to be square, and you can see those are now square bullets instead of the normal default round bullets. Now, section is where things are going to get a lot more interesting, because it used to be that section just said section, not anything that was interesting or exciting about it whatsoever. It was just basic plain formatting. But now using CSS, we can change these. So you can see our footer has a top border is dotted, the border width is medium, the font style is italic, and we're adding 1% padding to that. So you can see this dotted footer, like this is kind of separating everything else. And you can see a couple of others like our sections here. We're adding a margin to the bottom of each one of these. We have a section div, so anywhere where we have a div within our section, we're giving it a border, a thin border width, 0.25 EM margin, and a 0.125 EM padding. So you can see that when we have these divs inside the section, that's kind of the result you get. It's not, these are small amounts, the margin and padding, 0.25 and 0.125. So you can kind of see we might want to get fractional with some of these values for EM because, 0.125 is not very much, but, it's probably the right amount to kind of see how this looks. So, and 0.25 is obviously, you can kind of see there is a little bit of separation between these, but not a ton. So, higher values for EM would give you more separation. And then let's see, what else do we have here? We have an article that's going to have a dashed border, and it's going to have more padding, and this is 2 EM, so like that's a lot more space here. And we set a border on the left and on the right, so medium, or I'm sorry, on the right and on the left, so you can see that medium border is going to be on both ends. So you can kind of see how we can use borders to kind of just set it's different kinds of formatting here. And then we have a span inside the article that's actually not doing much of interest there. So if we look at the sections HTML, you can kind of see what this looks like. Note that there really is not much in the way of formatting here. The only really thing we're doing here is we're using this capitalized, and we're using text transform. So you can see the different ways we're applying those in styles. So this class capitalized is going to be right here, capitalized. So there you go. That text transform is just capitalized. If you look at the HTML, you can see this is a span inside the article, but this is capitalized. There you go. So we didn't actually, notice how the text here is different from what we specified. And then text transform uppercase is going to set everything. It's like caps lock. It's like we're screaming at this last part. So this is a second span inside the article. It doesn't show up that way in our HTML, but because we're using text transform uppercase, we can set it that way. So, quite a bit more going on this sections page. And if we look at tables, we can actually see this one is going to actually have a lot more going on as well. Because we have all of these different styles that are going to pertain to our tables. So we have a table header, and you can see we're setting the font weight to bold, and we're setting the Verdana font with also a sans serif option. And you can see that's a little bit different than this font that's being used for the links. And you can see the headers here, like header 1, header 2, header 3, those are all a different font. They're all bold. And then in our table data, our TDs, thought we had one TD tag here. Yeah, here we go. So we have border style dotted, border width thin, padding is 2 pixels. So you can see there's a dotted border. We got a little bit of padding. We've got, so everything else kind of formatted is differently there. Now in the second table, you can see we're actually not using a border for this, but we are, we're using this no border. So if we go into our tables, let's take a look at that HTML so you can see it. If you look at these here, we're using class no border. So we've combined that class with the table data, and now we can say for each one of these we're going to set no border style, but we are going to set a border radius to 20 pixels, and that will allow us to have that sort of rounded look. And if you look at these, you can kind of see how these are more like a pill sort of formatting, like it's like got that rounded edge that kind of comes together. So you can see we can manipulate the table appearance pretty easily using CSS, and we can combine those to make it look interesting as well. Forms, probably not anything too exciting here. We're using some headings, but overall it's basically the same. There's not, we've changed the formatting for headings, and if you look at the forms page, we haven't really added up much in the way of CSS. In fact, there's actually very few attributes here altogether, but each one of these H2 elements now has a different formatting, and that's because if we go into our CSS style, you'll see we have a different set of selectors, a different set of properties for our H2 selector. Now, lastly, on absolute positioning, you can see here how we can use absolute positioning to set the position of text. If we change the size of our window, this will still be in the same position. And if we scroll all the way down, you can see there's an absolute 1. We're setting position to absolute. Then we're setting the left and top to be a particular position. In this case, 20 pixels from the left and 360 pixels from the top. So you can see 20 pixels here, 360 pixels from the top. And then with more text, we have this one is set 300 pixels from the left, 440 from the right. And you can see how there's some overlap here. So there is actually a z-index property that you can use to kind of set, what the order of things should be displayed on the page, so that if you want this red bordered text to show up ahead, you could change the z-index property so that those will be a little bit more controlled. So this will give you a rough overview of the different kinds of things you can do with CSS. I'd encourage you to take a look at the code, try deploying it, manipulate some of the properties, change things around, see if you can explore it a little bit. Experimentation is actually really valuable when you're trying to understand how these things work. So I encourage you to get out there and experiment. Hopefully you'll learn a little bit about CSS in the process, or hopefully you'll learn at least enough about it to format things that you would the way you would like. So thanks for watching, and we'll get further into App Engine in the next few videos.